Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
We hope you enjoy listening to this podcast of St. Louis on the Air, brought to you by University College at Washington University. With undergraduate and graduate programs, part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
There's been a burgeoning trend in recent years in which local farmers are finding more local markets. Consumers are demanding fresh produce, farmers' markets are popular and busy, and local restaurants are responding. That's the subject of our most recent Soundbites conversation. I sat down a few days ago with Heather Hughes, managing editor of Sauce Magazine, Rex Hale, who just opened Baker's & Hale, a farm-to-table restaurant, and David Boland of Boland Family Farms. He's a young first-generation farmer. I asked Heather why farms and farming caught the magazine's eye.
Well, first, we've heard such good things from chefs about the farms that we covered in the story, which is Boland Family Farms, Such and Such, and Buttonwood Farms. So we've seen their names forever. They work with some really big names and come out with some really good stuff. But we were thinking about how difficult it is to break into the farming industry. And all of those three farms are sort of startups. Being a startup in the farming industry is nothing like being a startup anywhere else. It's primarily family-run places. So you're competing against people who have grown up in the industry. They've been taught by their parents and grandparents what to do, what to expect, and you're just coming at it completely fresh. So every problem is a new problem. Especially these small farms, we're impressed that you can survive at all. It's not an easy business. It's changed a lot in the past century. In 1935, there were 600, like a little over 6 million farms in the U.S., and the average size was 155 acres. Now, the average size is 444 acres, and there are just a tiny bit over 2 million farms in the U.S. So things have gotten much bigger and smaller at the same time. Fewer farms that are much larger, run by fewer people. So coming in fresh and not having a ton of money and a ton of equipment already, it's just like, how do you do that? So we were very impressed by these people who just decided to. It's a hard business, and they seem to be doing well, and they're working with big names in the food community in St. Louis. So we wanted to learn a little bit more about their personal stories.
Well, David, you're one of those who's just gotten into it as a very young man. Yeah. How hard was it for you?
I would say different aspects of it had different levels of difficulty. The farming aspect of it was difficult because of how much knowledge is involved in the process of growing something, harvesting it, storing it, and then what most farmers don't have to deal with is marketing their product, you know. And so that side of it was difficult, getting it to a level where I felt, confident in our product and in what knowledge that we had about our products and what we were doing. It was a timely process. A lot of research had to be done. And so, I don't know, how hard? Very hard. It was very hard. Not impossible, but discouraging.
Why did you decide to get into it? How big a place do you have, and what do you grow?
I was trying to cut back on food costs, but I wasn't trying to necessarily buy cheaper food, you know. And so I was living in Ferguson at the time, and there was a building that had just been demolished in front of my house, and I called the landowner and asked him if I could use the property, and he told me as long as I managed it and kept it mowed so that he didn't get any tickets from the city, I could use the land. And so it started out just me growing stuff for my family, my immediate family, so that we could cut back on food costs. And, like a lot of projects of mine, it kind of got out of hand from there.
It grew. Yeah, no pun intended.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
It did. And as far as what we grow on those 20 acres, it's a lot of different stuff. But at this time of the year, it's a lot of sweet potatoes, fall squash, even some lingering summer crops like zucchinis and green beans, tomatoes even are still out there.
Sounds pretty much like the kind of things you'd find on a farm.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then some oddball stuff that you don't find on many farms as well.
Such as?
Oh, Chinese broccoli. We grow a lot of Italian heirloom vegetables, so like radicchio, which is a variety of chicory. Let me think of what other oddball stuff. Heirloom corn, which is corn is a very commonly grown crop here. Heirloom corn is a rarity. It's not machine harvestable. The stalks can grow, 16 feet tall, and the corn can be, 10
as
feet
high
up
as an
in the-
elephant's eye.
Exactly.
As they say. Rex, are you growing any Chinese broccoli these days?
I'm not really a farmer. I'm a chef, and I love the stuff that I get from David and from such and a number of other farmers in the area. But to me, it's really exciting to see the quality of product that's being brought to the restaurants here in the St. Louis area. It's really pretty incredible. I've worked all over the world and spent a lot of time in California, which most people think is the breadbasket of the world. And to see the amount of work that's required to do that in Missouri and to see the end result of the product, to me, is incredible.
Do you find the farmers or do they find you?
Combination of both, probably. David's one that actually ran into me, and we've been together ever since.
What role do the farmers markets play in all of this in terms of an opportunity to meet people that you might be able to develop a different kind of relationship
Most
with?
definitely. I think that is the key part that they play is building relationships with the community and being kind of a source of information for the general public that does not usually see vegetables outside of the state that they're usually seen in grocery stores. So usually people have not seen heads of broccoli that have the leaves on them or that have the long stem on them and don't know that you can eat different parts of the plant. And I think that's the most important part of the farmer's market is kind of bridging the gap between farm life and city life and kind of letting folks understand what the different stages of these foods that they can be eaten at. A lot of stuff we start harvesting when it's very small, and people are always like, baby corn was one thing this spring. Everybody was just like, whoa, we've never even seen corn this small. And there's many reasons. It's not the most time-effective thing to pick baby anything. And so a lot of farmers do what's time-effective, but it's not always what's the most taste-effective or taste the best. So we try to be a source of information for folks at the farmers market so that they can, one, put a face to their food and two, understand what they're eating a little bit more.
Rex, with your relationship with farmers, I'm sure you utilize farmers markets. I mean, it's kind of a one-stop shopping in one sense, I would guess, for someone like you. But in your relationship with farmers, can you kind of order what you want, saying, boy, next year I would like you to plant a little more of this because there's a big market for it?
Absolutely. That's probably what I do more than anything. And that's what's exciting, because when you have people that are willing to listen to what you would use if they would grow it, and then if it doesn't work, next year you don't plan to do it. It's pretty much the deal.
But you got to planning ahead like that. You mean it's kind of a crapshoot, isn't it? Something that may be in vogue this year, and you say, "Boy, I'll need more of that next year."
Yeah,
and then next year it's out of vogue.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the Vogue guy. I kind of like to cook what I like to cook, and I kind of let the Vogue go to the Vogue way, because I think the reality is, if you cook from your heart and you serve food from your heart, the reality is it doesn't matter what the ingredients are as long as they're quality.
That is the value of being a small farmer, is that sort of custom ordering and that relationship where you can go to the same people every year and see what they're interested in.
This is kind of on-the-job training, I gather, for you. I mean, you started in Ferguson, you say, and here you are now. You're kind of learning as you go along.
Oh, of course. I'll probably keep learning until I die. Yeah, it's a continuous learning process because all of the variables are ever-changing. The weather never changes the same. Everything is different from year to year.
What about the equipment? I mean, your place is not the biggest place, but you still need equipment that turns out to be very expensive.
Yes, and luckily, in our situation, I was blessed to be able to expand from my Ferguson property to a property in southern Missouri where the owner already had a lot of the equipment that we needed, which is minimal because most of the planting and the harvesting is done by hand. And so the few tractors that we did need to make our operation efficient, they were already in place.
Rex, getting back to this, or staying with the equipment thing, some of the things I've read recently talk about satellite technology that you can measure the moisture in the ground from satellites, and some of the equipment is terrifically expensive. What does that do to your costs?
The biggest challenge is really not what the expense is what the consumer values what the expense is probably the biggest challenge, because I don't think that a lot of consumers truly understand what the net expense is that you have to put good food on a plate. And there's a huge difference between serving quality food and ingredients that are inferior.
Yeah, that fresh foods are more in demand now than perhaps they were not too awfully long ago.
Well, and I think part of that is just better education about health and what people should be eating. Fresh food's always been more expensive, but it's always been better for you. I think the cost, like Rex was saying, of producing something that's good isn't just using vegetables. It's using vegetables that are farmed sustainably and in ways that, like David was saying before, is more for the flavor of the food itself and not pure efficiency. So being a small farmer, you have to think about so many things. It's not just efficiency. You're not just a business person. You're working with the land, which is unpredictable, and you have to think of how people are going to use it, and it's really complicated. And I'm always very impressed by people like David, who you get the sense is laid back enough to deal with that sort of uncertainty, and in ways that are creative and forward-thinking. Really good problem solvers are good farmers.
Yeah. And Rex, what are you seeing with regard to what people are demanding now of their food, of their fresh food?
Oh, I don't think that there's anyone that's not demanding fresh food at this point, and I think it will continue to trend in that direction. And I think that the local farmers will continue to grow and their crops continue to improve, because the reality is you cannot send food from miles away and have the same level of freshness. It's just not possible. And I think we're finally realizing that as a country and as a culture. And so, if you harvest something today and serve it today, or you harvest something in the last 2 days, it's so much better than if it were harvested 10 days ago, put on a truck, shipped another 7 days. It's already 17 days old, and the quality of the food is just not as good. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Well, that's music to your ears, David.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, and I also want to touch on something that he was just speaking about and that you kind of touched on earlier, is the trend of not just eating fresh food, but eating specific vegetables, and how you were talking about the risk of growing vegetables that may not be popular the following year. And I think that that's a problem that plagues small farmers more than commercial farmers, but I would like to urge all farmers to, like Rex was saying, more grow what suits your interests, because you're not the only one that likes the things that you like, and to also take the time to educate yourself on the vast world of vegetables that exist, as opposed to what Food Network might say is a popular vegetable for the year. And so we usually grow things that aren't necessarily trendy. And so at the farmer's market, you'll have a lot of people that walk up and they're like, do you have spinach? No, we don't have spinach. Do you have kale? No, we don't have kale. But that's because 10 other farmers grow the same thing. And so there's also a risk in there's a risk in following the trend, and I believe that there's less risk in understanding that you are the producer, and you also have the power to build a demand for any given product that is not known which the Chinese broccoli is one of those things that opened my eyes on another level to how much people may want something that they have no idea about.
Sure, it's your opportunity to introduce to the public things that they don't even know that they would like.
Exactly.
We have to put a bottom line on this. And Rex, how about you? Bottom line that you want people to take away from this conversation?
I think bottom line is that, buy from your farmers that are right here in Missouri, right here in your backyard, and communicate with them. Whether it's at the farmer's market or whether you're a chef, have dialogue with them. Let them know what you're interested in and bounce ideas off each other, because I think it's very productive, and I think that in the end we'll have a better food world right here in the St. Louis area if we'll do that.
It is a collaboration.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
David, final thought?
I'd say to also continue on what Rex is saying, it's also make sure that you're investing your money and time and eating at restaurants that have that same concept of sourcing quality ingredients from local farmers, as opposed to doing what's convenient.
And people, Heather, are doing that.
Yeah, it seems like it. I think,
Yeah.
and being more willing to try something you've never tried before. So if the sugar snap peas don't work in your local climate, but there's lots of interesting greens that you've never heard of, you have to be willing to try them, and they're going to be better quality if they're coming from somebody like David.
Thanks to Heather Hughes of Sauce Magazine, Rex Hale of Bakers and Hale, and David Bolin of Bolin Family Farms. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.